The night I threw myself in front of a speeding car, I honestly thought that might be it for me. I was not ready for what God did with it instead. And tell me something right now, if saving a stranger's little girl meant ripping open the ugliest wound of your life, would you still run? My name is Grace Williams, and this is how a woman sleeping under a bridge ended up inside a billionaire's house, exposing his family's darkest secrets, rebuilding everything they burned, and facing a son I thought I had buried. Yeah, that happened. And if you think you know how this story ends, you really don't. That night, the rain under I-85 was loud and angry, slapping concrete, flooding the gutters, turning cardboard beds into soggy lies. I was sitting against a cold pillar, with my thrift store coat pulled tight, cradling the last of some cheap coffee like it was something holy. People think when you are homeless, your mind goes fuzzy, but it is the opposite. Your senses stay on high alert. Every engine sound, every broken bottle, every man walking too slow past your corner. I knew which cars were drunk, which ones were tired, which ones belonged to people who would never look down far enough to see me. Before all that, I was a nurse. I had scrubs, a badge, a tiny apartment with a second-hand couch that squeaked, and a son with big brown eyes who wrapped his whole hand around one of my fingers. His name was Jacob. Mercy Hospital called what happened to him an unavoidable complication. I called it the day my whole world was stolen. When I asked questions about missing notes, wrong meds, thin staffing, I went from nurse of the month to she is difficult. My shifts got cut, bills stacked, grief moved in and sat on my chest. And one bad decision, one late rent, one job loss at a time, I slipped right through the cracks of the system I used to trust. So yeah, by the time you see me under that bridge, I had already lost almost everything, except my faith and my stubbornness. I still talked to God like he was sitting next to me in the dark. Some nights I was polite. Some nights I wasn't. You know what I mean. That was the headspace I was in when I heard a child's laughter in the rain. It cut through the highway noise. High, sharp wrong for that place and that hour. I looked up and saw a tiny girl in a yellow raincoat chasing this red balloon that had slipped out of her hand. It was floating straight into the intersection, cars flying past like they were late to heaven. Then I heard a man's voice behind her too far away. "Alana, stop." She didn't. I moved. Barefoot coat flapping the pavement like ice under my feet, I ran. I didn't do any heroic math in my head. One second I was under the bridge, the next I was in the street, grabbing her around the waist, throwing us both sideways as headlights exploded in my vision. There was a screech, a hit, white pain. Then nothing for a second. When the world came back, I was on my side, ribs screaming, gravel in my palms. That little girl curled against me, shaking like a leaf. "It's okay, sweetheart, I got you. You're okay," I whispered like muscle memory from my nursing days. A black SUV swung up brakes, drowning in water. The door flew open, and a tall man in a gray coat sprinted toward us like the earth might split. "Alana!" he yelled, dropping to his knees. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head and pointed straight at me. "She saved me, Daddy. The car almost hit me. She pulled me back." He followed her finger and really saw me then. Soaked, bleeding, cheap coat, bare feet, eyes steady. And I saw it hit him, gratitude colliding with suspicion. "You need a doctor," he said, clipped, decisive, like a man used to being obeyed. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just make sure she's all right." She grabbed my sleeve. "Don't go, she's my hero." Hero. That word does something to you when you feel like trash. Paramedics came out of nowhere. Before I could argue, they had me loaded into an ambulance IV in my arm. Bright lights, rough questions. The man in the gray coat, I would learn his name was Cameron Jefferson, was already on his phone talking about security vetting background checks. Like I was a potential threat instead of the woman who just threw herself at his car. At the hospital, under those humming fluorescent lights that always make people look worse than they are, he finally stepped up to my bed. You'll be compensated, he said formal. My assistant will handle everything. I stared at him. You think I did that for money? He hesitated, something shifting in his eyes, but pride won. People do worse for less. I smiled, tired and a little bitter. Then maybe you haven't met the right people. He left. And a few minutes later, the real Storm walked in wearing pearls. Her name was Evelyn Jefferson. You could smell money, discipline, and a lifetime of getting her way before she opened her mouth. Perfect cream suit hair, pinned heels clicking like a metronome. Miss Williams, she said, placing an envelope by my hand. You saved my granddaughter. Inside is a check that should cover your medical needs and help you get back on your feet. We trust you'll keep tonight's events private. Our family prefers to avoid unnecessary attention. There it was, the transaction. I glanced at the envelope, then back at her. Ma'am, I'm just glad she's safe. I didn't do this for a reward. Her polite smile thinned. You're in no position to refuse help. Be reasonable. If it were you lying there bruised and broke, would you take the money and disappear? Or would you push it back at the woman who owns half the city? I didn't touch the envelope. That was my answer. When she swept out, I felt small as the blanket over me, but my soul felt 2 inches taller. Hours later, those doors crashed open again, this time, with my friend Naomi blowing in like color in a black and white film. Girl, you are all over the local news. She laughed, shoving her phone in my face. Homeless woman saves billionaire's daughter. You are a hero, I groaned. Give it 2 days. They'll twist it into something ugly. You know Pastor Toby's been praying over you, she added, softer now. He said maybe this is God opening a new door. God's doors don't usually come with NDAs, I muttered. But when she left and the room got quiet again, I whispered, Lord, if there is a door in this, let me see it, and let it not destroy me. What I didn't know is that same night in a mansion lit by crystal and polished stone, Cameron Jefferson was reading a file on me, frowning at words like former nurse, lost son, no criminal record. Why would someone like her jump in front of a car for a stranger's kid? He asked. His younger sister Ella leaned in the doorway and said, maybe because not everybody needs a contract to be decent. That line stuck. The next day, a sleek black car rolled up to the mission. Pastor Toby stepped inside, then called out for me with that little knowing smile that always meant trouble or blessing. They are asking for you, Grace, he said, nodding toward the car. Looks like those doors you prayed about might be opening. I should have said no. Instead, I walked out with my thrift store bag and slid into leather seats that smelled like another planet. We drove through Buckhead to iron gates taller than any house I had ever lived in. The Jefferson Estate. Big enough to fit my entire world and still echo. Inside, as soon as I stepped through the front door, a streak of yellow came flying at me. Miss Grace, you came... Alana slammed into my waist, hugging me like we were old friends. Her little curls still smelling like baby shampoo, her eyes bright and safe. I hugged her back. I had to make sure my brave girl was okay. Cameron was there watching, hands in his pockets, trying to look neutral and failing. Evelyn hovered behind him, posture perfect, expression unreadable. Thank you for coming, Evelyn said, controlled. Alana has been asking for you nonstop. Then that little girl looked up at me and whispered, Can you pray with me again, like at the hospital? So I did. In the middle of that ridiculous, expensive room, I took her hands and asked God to keep her safe and fill this house with peace. When I opened my eyes, Cameron was staring at me like he was seeing something he did not have a category for. That is when Evelyn made an offer that changed everything. Miss Williams, she said, would you consider staying with us for a while as a companion for Alana until she is fully herself again? My brain short-circuited. I volunteer at the mission. I said they need me, and I will see that the mission receives a generous donation. She cut in. You will have room, salary, stability. Consider it done. Everything in me wanted to scream that I was not some stray they could adopt. Then I looked at Alana's hopeful face. For her, I said quietly, I will stay for a while. Pattern interrupt. When a billionaire invites a homeless woman to move in, it is never just kindness. There is always a test attached. The first days were stiff. Staff watched me like I had slipped past security. Evelyn was polite but cold. Cameron kept a distance, always working, always measured. Only Alana and Hazel, the cook, treated me like I belonged. Hazel would pass me a plate and whisper, "Let them look, honey. They ain't used to seeing somebody come up the front steps without a last name on the building." At night, in the small guest room, I would sit on the edge of a bed, softer than any I'd had in years, and pray, "Lord, keep my heart clean in this house. Don't let me forget the bridge. Don't let me sell my soul for a mattress." Then the tabloids hit. Somebody snapped a picture of me getting out of the Jefferson SUV with Alana holding my hand. The headline, "Homeless Hero or Hidden Nanny, the Mystery Woman Inside the Jefferson Estate." Cameron came home tight-jawed, waved the paper. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," he snapped. "We have shareholders' boards, a public image. You should have known this could happen." I stared at him. "I should have known that saving your daughter and being seen with her would offend rich people." Silence. "If me being here is going to destroy your reputation, I can leave." I added, my voice calm, my hands not shaking as much as they wanted to. Behind him, I saw Alana frozen on the stairs, Evelyn watching. Cameron looked between us, the anger draining out, leaving something like shame. "I'm sorry," he muttered. "I was out of line." Yeah, he was. And I let him sit with that. That was the first crack. He started finding me in little moments after that, awkward at first. In the garden where I was trimming dead roses. In the kitchen where I helped Hazel. Asking how Alana slept, how she was at meals, what calmed her. "She listens to you," he said once, watching through the doorway as I braided Alana's hair. "She hasn't trusted anyone that fast in a long time." "Children know where the peace is," I said. "They also know where the fear is." We circled each other like that for a while. Him trying to figure out why I risked my life, me trying to decide if this house was a blessing or a trap. Then one quiet afternoon at the park with the ducks and that same red balloon in Alana's hand, he asked about my past. Really asked. So I told him. I told him about Jacob, about Mercy Hospital, about the night my son stopped breathing, the staffing cuts, the missing chart, the unavoidable complication. I never believed the way they made me feel crazy for asking why. The avalanche that took my license, my job, my home. By the time I finished, his face was white. "Which hospital?" he asked, even though I had said it. "Northside Mercy." I repeated, "I used to work there. I lost him there." He swallowed hard. "Grace, my company owns that hospital chain." There it is, the twist. The man whose daughter I saved, the man whose house I was living in, the man slowly learning to trust me, was tied to the system that had destroyed me. If it were you, would you walk back in that mansion, or would you run and never look back? I chose something harder. I stayed and I watched what he did next. Stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind. Cameron could have buried it. He could have written me a bigger check, patted my shoulder, and gone back to his meetings. Instead, he started asking questions people like him are not supposed to ask. He pulled records, called for audits, dug into 5-year-old files. He found forged timestamps, missing logs, budget cuts that made no medical sense, and one name sitting in the middle of every bad decision: Marcus Hill. Marcus was his partner, his friend, the smiling face in charity galas, the man who also happened to own the blog that suddenly loved smearing me. Charming, polished, rotten. In a boardroom of glass and gold, Cameron laid out the evidence in front of everyone. Forged approvals with his late father's signature, added after the man was in the ground. Money shuffled out of Mercy, while kids like mine died from neglect, and Marcus holding the pen. Marcus laughed him off, called my story a sob story being weaponized. Cameron slammed his hand down. "That woman saved my daughter's life," he said. "You erased her once. You will not do it again." Security escorted Marcus out. The board started whispering. The press caught wind. For the first time, someone important paid for what happened in the shadows of that hospital. Back at the house, Evelyn found me in the garden by the old oak tree. "I was wrong about you," she said, voice taut. I thought you were a threat. You are the reason my granddaughter laughs again. And my son, she swallowed. My son is finally becoming the man his father pretended to be. It wasn't a poetic apology, but it was real. I wish I could say that was the end of the battle. One night during a charity dinner meant to show the world we were all fine. The sky split open with a brutal storm. Lights went out. Wind screamed against the tall windows. Guests murmured. And in the chaos, Alana slipped away from the table to grab her puppy upstairs. We heard it at the same time, that small daddy from the dark hallway. I ran without thinking. Found her near a window that blew inward a second later, glass flying like knives. I wrapped her up, turned my back to the shards, felt them cut into my arms. Cameron reached us, grabbed his daughter, and we fought our way back down as a tree branch slammed into the front door and the whole house shuddered. Hours later, we came up from the basement to broken glass, flooded floors, half the garden torn apart. But the image the reporters caught through the gates was not destruction. It was us. Evelyn Cameron. Alana pressed against my side, praying by candlelight. Headline: Faith through the storm. The Jeffersons stand together with the woman who saved them twice. Under any other circumstances, I might have laughed. That same storm shredded the roof off the mission. The shelter is wrecked, Cameron told me the next morning. Toby says they lost almost everything. Then that's where we go, I said, already grabbing my shoes. We, he repeated, and he meant it. He didn't send a donation. He showed up. In work boots, sleeves rolled, hauling wood, serving soup. People recognized him, shocked to see the billionaire sweating beside the woman from under the bridge. Naomi bumped me and whispered, "Careful, Grace, you are rubbing off on him." In those days of mud plaster and tired laughter, something in both of us settled. The mansion was his house. The shelter felt like my heart. Somewhere in between, we became a team. Back under that oak tree weeks later, with the house repaired and the mission rising again. He took my hands. I asked God for another chance the night you pulled Alana off that road. He said, I didn't know he'd send you. Grace Williams, will you marry me and build this mad, redeemed life with me? Alana squealed before I could answer. Evelyn stood behind him, not fighting it anymore, just watching, eyes wet. Yes, I said, voice shaking, yes, I will. You would think that is where credits roll. But when you drag truth into the light, darkness does not clap. It reloads. Marcus, even from the edge of his ruin, still had friends. Stories popped up questioning my past, my education, digging up my father's failed contracting business, twisting half-truths into accusations. Someone new stepped in the shadows, moving money through side accounts, signing emails with one name. Bishop. We caught Marcus trying to torch the gardens one night, drunk and desperate, gasoline on his shoes. Security tackled him, cops took him, but as they shoved him into the car, he yelled, "You think I'm the only one? The fire's just getting started." We did not hide. We launched the Phoenix Initiative. We put our mess on the table. Yes, my family failed. Cameron told the press. Yes, we are making restitution. We built a program for shelters, hospitals, legal aid. We named a youth wing after kids tossed aside like mine had been. And that is when Bishop came to collect. It was another bad night. Wind, high power, unstable. The lights cut out completely around midnight. Security system glitched. I was in our bedroom when I heard the front door creak over the howl of the wind. "Stay here," Cameron said. I didn't. We met the intruder in the hallway. Tall, mid-40s, clean but mean eyes, too calm, a pistol in his hand. "Mrs. Jefferson," he said, like we had a dinner appointment. "I told you we would meet." "Bishop," Cameron said, tense. "If it's money, we can talk." He smiled. "It is never about money with me. It's about balance. Yours is overdue." He flicked an envelope toward me. Inside was a photograph so old it bent me at 17, exhausted but glowing, holding a newborn wrapped in blue. My knees went weak. "Where did you get this?" "The past," he said, stepping closer, "does not stay buried. My name is not Bishop. It's Jacob." The room tilted. No, I whispered. My Jacob died in the clinic, they told me. They lied, he snapped, years of poison in his voice. Your Mercy Hospital, your investors, your rich men. They sold babies, moved records, bought silence. While you cried over an empty grave, I was passed around like inventory. And all these years, you built your little faith stories, you never came for me. I could feel Cameron going cold beside me, realizing just how filthy parts of his father's world had been. I didn't know, I said, tears burning hot. Jacob, I swear to you, I didn't know. If you had, he asked, voice cracking, gun twitching, would you have chosen me over all of this, over him, over this house? That is the question that cut the deepest. Not from him, from myself. Every single time I said no hesitation. He flinched. Then rage won, and he raised the gun. The shot burned the air. Cameron stumbled, hand clutching his side, red spilling through his shirt. I dropped to him, pressed hard, praying out loud. Stay with me, breathe. Don't, Cameron rasped. Don't hate him. Behind me, Jacob stood, shaking the gun, slipping in his sweaty hand. You wanted to hurt me, I said, turning toward him with blood on my hands. Well, here I am, look at me. If you are my son, if you have even one memory of me written in your bones, then do not let hate finish what evil men started. You left me, he whispered. I lost you. I shot back. And they made sure I believed you were gone, but I never stopped praying for you, never stopped saying your name. You are the one prayer I never let go of. Something broke in his eyes. The gun hit the floor. He crumpled, sobbing like a child who finally ran out of rage. Police burst in. Chaos, shouting, flashing lights. They took him away in cuffs. They took Cameron into surgery. They left me sitting in a hallway with blood under my nails, wondering if all my forgiveness preaching had just blown my whole life apart. Cameron survived. The bullet missed the things you do not come back from. In his hospital room, pale and still stubborn, he gripped my hand. How is he? He asked. Broken. I said, they are saying he was groomed, manipulated by people who built an empire on kids like him. People who wore our last name once. He closed his eyes. Then we fix this, all of it. Or we don't deserve your yes. So we did something most people only post about. We traced every deal tied to that ring. We cooperated with investigators. We put names on paper. Some of them were dead. Some of them were rich. Some of them went down. We told the truth even when lawyers screamed. As for Jacob, the court ordered treatment counseling time. Pastor Toby visited him. I wrote letters. I am still your mother. I told him, when you are ready, I am here. Months later, at the opening of the Jacob Center, a space built for kids who had lived the same kind of hell he had. I stood with scissors in my hand and said into the mic, pain taught me how to survive, but grace taught me how to fight without becoming what hurt me. This building is not about my name or our money. It is about refusing to throw away one more broken kid. I cut the ribbon. People clapped. Cameras flashed. And at the back of the crowd, in a gray hoodie, stood my son. After everyone drifted off, he walked closer. Mom, he said, voice small. I did not give him a speech. I just wrapped my arms around him and held on. That night, we ate dinner under the oak tree again. It was still scarred from the storm and the fire, black streaks along its trunk, but new green leaves were pushing through. Cameron sat beside me, healing slow. Alana leaned against my arm. Evelyn passed Jacob the potatoes like she had done it his whole life. Naomi took way too many photos. I looked at that table and felt something dangerous for a woman like me. Peace. Now I want to ask you, because this is where the story stops being just mine. Was I wrong to forgive? To love a man whose family money was tied to my pain, as long as he chose to expose it and fix it? Was I reckless to open my arms to a son who pointed a gun at my husband after being twisted by monsters they both never met? Do we as a society really want redemption stories, Or do we just like watching people burn? Do you think it's fair that some rich men get to clean their names with donations, while mothers on the street carry scars nobody pays for? Or is it more dangerous when we refuse to let anyone change because we like them frozen in their worst moment? You tell me, because I believe mercy without justice is cheap, and justice without mercy is cruel. And somewhere between those two cliffs is where real change lives. But I am just one woman who ran into traffic and refused to let that be the end of my story. If this hit something in you, I want you to tell me in the comments. If you think I forgave too much, say it. If you've lived through hospital negligence, corrupt bosses, dirty money, broken family, tell your story. If you believe some people don't deserve a second chance, I want to hear why. And if you are someone standing under your own bridge right now thinking God forgot you, I want you to write one thing: light finds a way. Share this with someone who thinks their past disqualifies their future. Argue with me. Agree with me. But don't just scroll. Because if a homeless woman with blood on her hands and a broken heart can stand up inside the house that helped ruin her life and still choose grace, then maybe, just maybe, we are all capable of more than revenge. Now, if it were you, what would you have done?